Ranking every city in Europe I have been to. There's only one rule. It has to have over 200,000 people or something. I don't remember exactly what I set it to, but it has to be a big city. I think the closest cutoff we had was Stavanger, which would have finished lower. There's 17 cities, so let's do it. At 17, we have Munich, Germany. Munich is the first of many cities on this list that falls victim to me just simply not spending enough time in the city. However, it also just wasn't the most interesting city on the list. The Old Town was not very interesting. I like the architecture of the town hall. That was very cool. And the Glockenspiel, seeing that run. It went on for like 10 minutes. A bit outside the town center, we had the Munich Palace, which was a huge building, but compared to some of the other palaces in Europe, mainly Versailles, it wasn't the most elaborate building. It was just kind of a big building. If I ever went back to Munich, which I probably wouldn't, I'd probably just explore the rest of Bavaria because there's a lot to do there. At 16, Naples, Italy. I barely spent a day there. I like the chaos of the city though. It leads to great culture and good food. But sometimes you just feel cramped in the city. Like, man, there is no parks. There is no space on the streets. It is just total chaos in the whole city. But again, I didn't get the chance to explore really because I was only there for a day. Definitely I like some of the southern Italian architecture too. But overall, in the 24 hours that I was there, not my favorite. 15, as much as I hate to admit it, we have Gothenburg, Sweden. This is city one of our Nordic roulette, which is just a ton of Nordic cities in a row. I like them all. Like, this is the part of the list where, like, okay, those first two I didn't really like that much, but from this point on, I liked all the cities. But these Nordic cities do tend to blend together. Gothenburg is the epitome of a Swedish city. Like, it feels like a smaller Swedish town, but bigger. My favorite part of Gothenburg was Slottsskogen. It's a huge park in the middle of the city, surrounded by these hills. It's got like traditional Swedish animals up on some of the hills, but my favorite part was just the escape. Like, you're surrounded by these hills, you're in the middle of a city, but you really do not feel like it. Also, I think the best church in Sweden, and I've seen a lot of them, is in Gothenburg, Oscar Frederick's church. It's located near Haga, which is the coolest part of Gothenburg. Really cool, much cooler than the downtown area. But overall, even in Haga, I think other Nordic cities do it better. So that's why it falls so low on this list. 14, Oslo, Norway. Oslo is a very interesting city because I don't really know what to do with it here. We have the coolest modern architecture in all of the Nordics in the Oslo Opera House. Like, it's so amazing that you can walk on top of it, climb up it, and the view from on top, you get to see the city skyline, you get to see the fjord, you see the mountains. It's such a cool experience just to go onto the Oslo Opera House, and that makes the city for me. However, there are also numerous parks in the city that are fun to explore. The architecture in Oslo feels more new than the rest of the Nordics, and probably because Oslo is very rich. And walking along the water, kind of by the fjord, it's a great time. And it isn't the top of the Nordic roulette, simply because I liked other cities more. 13, next on the Nordic roulette. This is the realist bummer of a placement, but we have Malmö. This is tough because I really, really, really liked Malmö, but this list is not forgiving. It's the hardest list I've ever made. Malmö is one of the smallest cities on this list. It's probably 300,000, 400,000 people, so there's just less to do there. But I really, really enjoyed exploring. The beach, even though I was there in February, was nice. Because I was living farther north in Sweden, it was a nice escape. It was like 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry. I also really liked the Turning Torso Tower. I know that is a highly controversial take. A lot of people do not be liking those skyscrapers in any European city, but I think it was cool and it added a nice monument to the city, and it's kind of out of the way of the old town. The whole rich neighborhood near there and the ocean. If it was clearer, I probably could have saw Copenhagen. I don't really know. Someone can correct me on that if they really feel like it, but I think I could have. I went to the Disgusting Food Museum, which was a fun time. I got to try many foods that I would have never, ever, ever tried in my life. Malmö was great, just not big enough. That's why it finishes so low. 12, we have the second biggest city in Norway, and I believe the smallest city on the list, Bergen, Norway. The old capital, the rainiest city in Europe for sure. It's one of the, something, it rains a lot. It wasn't rainy when I was there, it was perfectly sunny. Now, remember, this ranking is simply the city and not the surrounding stuff that you can do in the city. So we can't include things like Trolltunga on this list, even though it's near Bergen. We have to just include the city. But even within Bergen, there's the 7 peaks, which there's probably more than 7 in even within the city limits. But as someone who likes summiting mountains, it's very fun to summit the mountains, even though I only did it with one mountain in Bergen. The city is cool too. It's kind of a similar structure to Oslo with like the fjord and you have the sticking out peninsulas almost. And it's just like a more traditional Norwegian city than Oslo. It's less rich. You got the fishing stuff. So yeah, I did like Bergen. It's definitely the smallest city on this list, but simply because of the nature, it finishes higher. At 11, we have Milano, Italy. First Italian city I had been to. The experience for me was very unique because I went here during the Olympics, and I strictly went here because of the Olympics. I would have probably never gone to Milan in my life if it weren't for that. But this city was nice. It's a huge city, Milan, but definitely not as much to do as, or not as famous as some other cities. I like the stark contrast between Naples, which we had earlier in the list, and Milan now, the southern to northern Italy. Naples, we had that chaotic vibe. It was much poorer. And in Milan, it honestly feels like it could be a part of Switzerland. That's how rich it feels. Like you have all of those luxury brands there that are from Milan. And honestly, I felt out of place sometimes with all those stores. But the Duomo, right in the city center, is honestly one of the coolest churches I've been to. Climbing up on the roof, and you get to see all the spires up there. And when you're on the roof, it honestly feels like there's a whole separate church up there with how it's set up. I liked seeing the mountains. It was super clear that day for me, so that was nice. Food here, probably not as good as Southern Italy, but I did like the Milan style pizza. It's not something that's super common. It's not probably not the most popular thing to do when you're in Milan, but it's like this huge doughy pizza with crusty bottom and fluffy rest of the pizza. It was actually pretty good. You eat it with a fork and it's in squares. I'd recommend it because it's unique. Overall, Milan, the main highlights of the trip for me were all the Olympic stuff that I did, so I can't include that in my city ranking. Number 10, Helsinki, Finland. This is the city that has aged probably the best out of any city here. Right after I was there, like when I left and while I was there, honestly, it probably would have finished bottom 3 on this list. But with time, it's been so much better. While there, I did not think there was much to do. But surprisingly, I didn't think there was much to do, but I found a lot of stuff to do. Like, there wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, I have no clue what to do. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. The 2 main churches are some of the best in the Nordics. You have that really white one. That's the iconic building right in the middle of the city. I like that one. It was kind of bland inside, but I guess that's what you expect out of a Lutheran church. And then we had the Orthodox church, which, as you will see, the Orthodox churches are my favorite, despite how weird they are inside. Continuing with the church talk, we also had the Rock Church, which is a weird building, admittedly, because it sounds cooler than it is. It's entirely made up of, like, rock. You can walk on top of it, but it's mostly underground, and the rocks are cool. Like, it was overpriced, that's for sure. Let's practice my Finnish accent here. Suomenlinna was definitely the highlight for me. It's a touristy thing, but it's on an island, and it's kind of like an old fort. But the island is full of like these hills, and the fort goes under it. So you go into these dark tunnels, all sorts of cannons, and it was the only time I had sun on my whole trip. So that definitely helps a bit. But Suomenlinna was super cool. And the history of the island also, how it was a Swedish fort, a Russian fort, and now a Finnish tourist attraction. Come on. Overall, Helsinki is one of the cities on here that I can most see myself living in. Like, it felt like there was a lot more to offer if I just like spent more time there basking in the city. At number 9, Riga, Latvia. Riga is the first of the Baltic cities to feature on this list, and it's kind of in between like the supergiants. We have Milan, and you'll see the next 2. Riga was one of the cities that I wanted to visit most when I came to Europe. It's always been a bucket list city of mine. I've done projects on it in like middle school. The center of the city was cool. A lot of that stuff is fake. I know the old towns are touristy, built up stuff, but they are super cool. I like the canals with the hills and how the old town is kind of surrounded by that. It makes for nice walking and running routes. However, Riga definitely feels the most Eastern European out of all the cities I've been to, with the infrastructure, the Russian infrastructure for sure. the roads and the tunnels that go under the roads. It's super weird, honestly. I've never seen anything like it. Like, instead of having pedestrian crossings above the road, they have it go under, which is, I guess, efficient. I love the looks of the Orthodox churches, as we know. The golden one, we had the colorful one, and overall Riga was just the standard for me. It's in the middle of the list for a reason. It feels like, hey, if you want to see what a European city can be, here we go. I had great weather here as well, so that plays a factor. Like the sunsets here by the river onto like that huge bridge, unmatched. At 8, London, England. What was that accent? Who knows? This is a weird city to rank because while I enjoyed London, I didn't get the chance to truly enjoy London. I was only here for a day and a half, and it was my first time in Europe, and I was tired. And I was with a group, so I didn't get to really do what I wanted, but I still saw a lot of the major sites. The food, mid. The accent, funny. The weather, surprisingly good. My favorite moments in London were just walking around at night and then like seeing the lads after work chilling at a pub, walking through some of the streets. And if I went back, I would do more of that, especially by the river. I didn't really go by the river all that much, just a bit. And London feels like another one of those livable cities to me. Besides money, of course, London's very, very expensive. This whole part of the video is kind of things I wish I did in London, but it's true. But I did enjoy it, and I would like to explore more. It's one of the cities that I would want to go back to the most on this list. At number 7, we have Paris, France. Paris, France. I was a big fan of Paris, France. This is the last city on the list that I visited my first time in Europe. Paris was my favorite city while I was on the trip, I believe, and it is still my favorite of that trip now. I was very mixed when I first arrived in Paris because it was super hot and I arrived by the train station, and the area next to the train station is kind of a dump. Then I went to the Louvre, and the Louvre was a great time for me. Just scurrying through the building, trying to see as much of it in 2 hours as I can. The building's like a maze, especially when you're not really paying attention to where you're going. So we were just kind of running around there, seeing as much as we could. That was such a fun experience. My favorite part of the Louvre was seeing all the statues, the courtyards that are outside, or the roof, but they have the sun coming in, filled with the statues. They were very cool. The Eiffel Tower was quite interesting. It doesn't really stick in my head. I mean, the biggest thing that I remember about the Eiffel Tower was the scammers trying to scam you at the bottom. But it was closed for the 2024 Olympics, so we couldn't go up it. But even viewing it from the bottom, it was cool to get pictures. Sitting by the river was a very nice time. I felt like I could relax and just enjoy it. That's kind of what you have to do in Paris. At 6, Copenhagen is just a city that I liked. Not for any particular reason, it just stuck out to me as a city that I liked. Now, ranking this list has been really hard, and there is not a particular reason that Copenhagen is this high, so I don't really know how it ended up this much higher than the other Nordic cities. But it did, and honestly 5 through 15 can be in any order. I would say it is as peak as a Nordic city can get. My favorite part of Copenhagen was the Church of Our Savior. We saw that building with all of its stairs going around the outside on the top and decided, yeah, we have to climb that. It wasn't something that we planned on doing, but like once you see it, it's like, wow, that is kind of sick. And it was a bit scary at the top, but it was very cool. Nyhavn and Rundetårn were also very cool highlights for me. Overall, I think Munich wishes it was Copenhagen, just with its old town. Like, Copenhagen is so much better than Munich. I like the canals in Copenhagen. They're fun to explore. I've never been to Amsterdam, but Copenhagen feels like what Amsterdam is in my mind. Like, all the bikes, you had the canals, all that. It kind of just feels like what Copenhagen is. As a runner, running around the lakes was cool as well. At number 5, we have Prague, Czechia. As we enter the top 5, we have a very hard city to rank. As a city, Prague easily deserves this and probably deserves more. With its iconic bridges, hills, castles, churches, everything. Like, it is such an iconic city, and when you see it in pictures, you're like, wow, I have to go here. That's probably part of the problem because it is such a touristy city. Old towns are always a cesspit for tourists, but this one really felt like it. But there is a reason for that. Like, this is probably the coolest old town. Putting all of that aside, it is undeniable that Prague is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. When I did manage to escape the tourist spots, the city was just as beautiful. Going atop any of the hills provides a massive sprawling view of the city that is so beautiful. Coming down from the castle, which the castle complex was cool. I Really did like the church there. Like you can see that up on the hill, and climbing up to the castle was a lot of fun too. And the Gold Street, I believe it's called. Sorry if I'm blanking on its name. Gold Street, where it was the old walls turned into old houses, and people still live there all the way up into like the 1900s. Like that was some cool history there. But coming down from there, up over onto this hill where you got like some of the best views of Prague and the most iconic views of Prague of like all the bridges, and that part was way less touristy too, which is surprising. It was kind of a park where a lot of skateboarders hung out and a lot of local Prahans. So yeah, Prague definitely has its lows, and you feel it while you're there, but it is just the coolest city in Europe, and there's a reason so many people go there. Welcome to my definitive top four. These cities have been locked in from the start. Like, I knew that these four were my top four as soon as I started making this list. It's the only part of this list that's definitive. Number 4, Vilnius, Lithuania. Vilnius is a city that was almost an afterthought to me. I only went to Lithuania to complete all 3 Baltics, to say I've been to all 3 Baltics, but I was shocked to find one of my favorite cities on earth. Like, it surprised me. Vilnius and its structure is honestly a bit like Prague. Like, you have the river flowing through the middle, you have the hills on all sides, some bridges everywhere, but it's a lot smaller and a lot less cool infrastructure, of course. Let's go through Vilnius. Starting south of the river, we have the Old Town. It's not as typical for an old town. It's more sprawling and there's no like defined borders. But the sheer number of churches in Vilnius is astonishing, honestly. And Old Town has a lot of those. There are at least 15 that I can think of off the top of my head. The most iconic being the Vilnius Cathedral, the one kind of like the Helsinki Cathedral, honestly, with its white exterior. But that cathedral feels like the heart of the town. Next to it, you have the hill with the tower on it. From there, you could have the best view of the city. From the Old Town in the south to the new modern city in the northwest to the 3 Crosses in the east and this giant hill. So this park on this hill was really cool. You feel like you just are not in a city anymore, and I love that feeling when you're in a city and you feel like you're not in a city. Now we head out northwest to the modern city. First, there's the Lukishku prison, which is such a fun tour. Learning about the Soviet history in the Baltics through a prison is such a nice, unique, and good idea, and it was honestly one of my favorite tours that I did in all of Europe. Many people criticize the openness of the park in front of the modern city and the ugly skyscrapers of Vilnius, but I love it. All in all, Vilnius far exceeded my expectations. At 3, we have Rome, Italy. There is no denying Rome. Even as someone who wasn't super into Roman history and wasn't into Italy at all, Rome is just cool. I could list the iconic locations in the city, and that would take up 10 minutes of the video. Well, yes, Rome is extremely touristy, and that was kind of my main knack of some of these other cities. Prague mainly. You expect that when you go to Rome. You know there are going to be a ton of people there. My favorite locations were the Colosseum, obviously, the Pantheon, the monument to Victor Emmanuel II. That building has faced criticism for it being too new and fake, but I honestly love it. Obviously, Vatican City, like St. Peter's Basilica, that stuff's cool. And I like Janiculum Hill. Like, you got a good view of Rome from up there. You could honestly just walk around Rome and find a building that is like, would be an icon in any other city. Trevi Fountain was very cool. So many people there. As I kind of mentioned previously, I think my favorite thing in the city was the Pantheon. It is insane that a building like that has lasted that long. You can feel the aura of it halfway across the city. Learning about how it was a temple for like the Roman gods before it became a church was super cool. Vatican City, surreal experience. Even as someone who's not a Christian, let alone Catholic, despite how unassuming St. Peter's Basilica looks from the outside, its inside and on top of the roof were just like awe-inspiring to me. Climbing to the top was one of my favorite church climbs in Europe, just behind Church of Our Savior in Copenhagen. I like the map hole. That's probably my favorite thing in the Vatican City. Although, just seeing the giant dome and all of the art in St. Peter's Basilica is probably there too. And should I be including Vatican City as its own city? Let me know. I don't know. I mean, it is just Rome. Like, what are we doing here? Like, that is the same city. How is it a country? Good job, Mussolini. The food here, pretty good. I don't like how you have to, like, try to not find touristy food. Like, bro, give me Northern Europe where you eat where you want and nobody talks to you. At 2, we have Tallinn, Estonia. My time in Tallinn was filled to the brim with activities, and I still didn't get to do all that I wanted. I got the Tallinn Pass, which pretty much allows you to do everything for free. Not for free, you have to pay for the pass, but like once you have it, you can just go into pretty much every building. This wins Best Old Town in Europe, I think. Although one gives it a run for its money. It is enclosed within a circle, so it's very, very contained, and on every side there's walls or hills. So it's super contained, and it feels like you're in an old medieval European city. Some of my favorite museums in Europe are in Tallinn. The fact that you could climb all of the city walls was pretty interesting, and you could walk along them, get different views of the city, both inside the old town and out. That was super cool, and I'm not sure any of the other European cities that I went to had something like that. The bastions under Kiekken de Kuk, super cool, and they were kind of empty when I was there too. Like the whole city was not that touristy. I mean, I'm sure it would be in the summer. I was there in April, and it really wasn't busy, probably because it was cold and it was cloudy and there was no sun and it was depressing. But it somehow made it this high. Even with all that. The various Soviet museums were cool too. The various churches were cool too. I think my favorite Orthodox church in Europe is the one that's sitting on the hill in Tallinn. And as I said, despite how interesting the Orthodox churches are on the inside, they're interesting on the outside. Super cool, and such an iconic look with the onion tops. They claim to have what was once the tallest building in Europe or something with one of their churches, which I just simply don't believe, but I climbed to the top of it, and yeah, I got a good view of the whole old town from there, and the whole new town from there, and the ocean. Man, don't get me started on Tallinn. On top of that, Tallinn just has so many cool areas. As I said before, no city ever has given me more of the impression that I was in medieval Europe compared to the old town. And even outside the old town, you had such a distinct Estonian feel to the city. It felt much smaller than Riga and Vilnius, which it definitely was, and it definitely had the Eastern European vibe to it, kind of in a similar way to Riga. To me, it felt like Tallinn had more Russian speakers. It felt like 50%. I also love the tremendous but awful brutalist architecture of Linnahall, the giant Soviet concrete sports stadium that's just sitting there abandoned that you get to just walk up to and explore and climb up on top of. I'm a big fan of brutalist architecture. Anything that is just ugly concrete, that's my cup of tea right there. The Maritime Museum, also kind of a surprise to me. That is something I would have never visited if it weren't for the Tallinn Pass, but I had it. So I went over there. It was fun to walk through the Estonian streets and kind of feel the city a bit more. Also, one of the best chocolates in Europe is from Estonia, Kalev. Latvia also has a good one, but Estonia is probably the best. Kalev. Number 1. Stockholm, Sweden. There is no debate. This is the greatest city in Europe. The way Stockholm is structured around the islands just gives it such a unique vibe that cannot be matched. Unlike most cities where you have a river by it, or an ocean by it, or a lake by it, in Stockholm you have all of the above, yet none of the above. I know it's technically a lake, but it doesn't feel like a lake. Just with all the islands. The Stockholm archipelago, so cool. There is no better city for pedestrians in the whole world, honestly. Because it's structured around these islands, they have paths around all these islands, they have paths through the islands, they have parks everywhere. Running here is my favorite city to run. I've been here probably 2 weeks, and I've just found so many cool running routes every time I go out. You just see, oh, this is a new one, that's very cool. And it's all by the water, which everybody knows. If you're running by the water, it feels half as long. So one of my favorite islands, Sodermalm, known as the hipster island. There's a lot of cool architecture and culture here. The geography of this island is so much fun. It's structured around a hill, and from the top of this hill, you can see all of the other islands. If we head south, you get Globen, and also known as Avicii Arena. You have famous concerts there, but it's just a giant ball. And you can go up the side of the ball to the top. So that's cool. Heading way up north again, we have Gamlastan. This is a very touristic island, but it's a good old town, I think. One of the best in Europe, up there with Tallinn. Because it's enclosed on this island, it has a very cool vibe to it. Even though it's pretty touristy, if you just go a street over, you can escape that tourism. There's not a lot of people on the streets to the side. And there's so much stuff you can discover on this island. So many hidden little nooks and crannies, like the tiniest street or like this giant courtyard with like the Nobel Museum. And I like the waviness of the streets, the hilliness of the streets, all that. And it has my favorite view in Stockholm right there. If you look south towards Södermalm from Gamla Stan, it's such a cool view. Also, one of the best stores in Europe, the science fiction Bokhandel. The one in Gothenburg is better. The one in Malmö is better. The one in Linköping is better, but I just had to mention it. Like, this one's in a cooler location, so this store is so cool. As a fantasy reader, as you can see, all the fantasy books, all the science fiction books are so cool in there. Going north again, we have the downtown area. This is very much kind of like Helsinki and Oslo, the same type of vibe right here. Just the pinnacle of Nordic urban development. Going west from there, you have Kungsholmen, kind of a quieter island. Feels more residential, but still, once again, pedestrian friendly, fun to run around. Like, I stayed here for a week, so that was a lot of fun. And then, like, if you go south of Kungsholmen, you have Långholmen, which is a fun nature island. Like, there's this giant hill. You have a lot of hiking on this island. It's tiny, but a lot of packs a punch for how small it is. Going all the way east now, back to the mainland, we have a pleasant walk by all the boats before you get to Djurgården, the tourist island, but also not a tourist island if you go to the right parts. Here are all the famous museums of Stockholm. One of the best museums in Europe, the Vasa Museum, just the giant old boat from a long time ago. And that is fun to look at and to learn the history of, honestly. I also really like the Nordiska Museum, like the coolest building on the outside. And on the inside, it's pretty cool too. Pretty empty, but the outside is just one of the best looking buildings. Other famous museums that I haven't been to on this island are the ABBA Museum and the Viking Museum. The open air museum, Skansen, is quite an interesting experience. I don't really understand the point of open air museums, but I guess it's a cool way to experience Swedish culture, and it was a fun time, honestly. The theme park Gröna Lund is also here. It's a small park, but it packs a punch. Like, there's some fun rides there. And the rest of Djurgården, if you head west, is all nature. It's all a park, which is kind of fun. As I've said, like, I love a park that's huge in the middle of a city, and that's what Djurgården is. It's all one park. And if you go north, it's more park, north of Djurgården, that is. So once again, great running around this island, great walking around this island, fun to explore the giant park of the island. And like, you can see the Stockholm archipelago from the one side of the island, and you can see the city from the other side. It's great. I could continue to rave on about Stockholm, but I am running out of storage, and I think I have made my point very clear. There we go. Again, this is impossible to rank. Tomorrow, the list will probably be different. At some point, I will probably come back and rank all the smaller cities that I've been to in Europe. But for now, that is it for this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.